I suppose to give them some credit, they lasted just over a year before bringing in a wealth tax. Do you remember? Tax them until the pips squeak, as we heard from a former Labour Chancellor. It's the idea to which the Labour Party always turns. Make the wealthy pay more. Are they not aware? And I think it's this week we will learn the figure. But you are talking of tens of thousands of rich businessmen and women, millionaires and billionaires, who have left this country, going to places such as Dubai or Italy, where they're far more in tune, and you can buy yourself a sort of golden visa or whatever you want to call it to go and live in Italy. I think you give them 250,000 euros or whatever. People are living and taking with them, we don't know yet, but it is billions. We do know that for the 20,000 rich people who have left, 750,000, it is estimated, will have to pay that they pay that level of tax to get their money back. 750,000. And I do think it's a strange look for a country that at the airports, billionaires and millionaires are forming an orderly queue to leave, taking their money with them, and obviously firing staff. Look, this is not a life I know. But if I had that kind of money and I had a big house in the Cotswolds, I'd probably have a couple of gardeners, I'd probably have a chef, I'd have a driver. Boom, gone. People losing their jobs. I'd probably keep horses. So there we go, no work for the farriers and on and on. Now, I know many of you are saying, good luck, good riddance, let them go. I don't know that actually makes a lot of economic sense. So I say again, a nation where they're forming queues at Heathrow Airport if the boss is awake and managed to keep it open for a day, the bungler-in-chief, Thomas Volby, providing the airport is open. Meanwhile, at our shores, people are coming over with absolutely nothing, in their tens of thousands. So we lose 15 to 20,000 rich men and women, and we gain 22,000 people who are asylum seekers, penniless, we don't know their background, potentially. Some of them perhaps Russian infiltrators. I swear it isn't him. William is in Alloa. William, your reaction to what we're hearing. Good morning.
Good morning. It's absolutely incredible. I think we have to remember that success is not a sin. And already, a lot of the rich people, they are leaving in their droves.
17,000.
They're leaving in their yachts.
17,000.
Well, yes.
Yep.
Yes. So soon there'll be no one left to tax. So this is absolutely preposterous, and I think we have to remember that there's other things that they can do to raise money. This country will pay £105 billion on interest. So why don't we have an interest tax? Why don't we reduce that interest down to zero and go after the bankers and not after people who are productive?
William, you kept it brief and succinct. Let's see others agree. The wealth tax that, according to Lord Kinnock, could net £10 billion a year. It's fair to say economic commentators question that it would be quite that level. But what you cannot ignore is that there are 17,000 wealthy people who've fled the country. We'll have more on that. Let's try again Michael Chessum, writer, left-wing activist. Michael, morning. Can you hear me?
Good morning.
Hello, sir. Hello, sir. The political view on this. Morning to you.
Yeah, look, Britain is increasingly becoming a poor country with rich people living in it. You know, our wages probably will just about have flatlined, maybe recovered from the financial crash of 2008, 20 years later. Our public services have been hammered and life has gotten worse for an awful lot of people. And in the meantime, we have a record number of billionaires. Profits have gone up and up and up. Asset values have gone up and up and up. The collective wealth of Britain's billionaires is something like £795 billion. That is 3 times the annual operating budget of the NHS. That is the same as the GDP of Poland. And I think a wealth tax is absolutely what we need to rebalance that and start taxing the rich. Because I mean, we are getting to a point now where, you know, public. Look, even as a relative supporter of what you would call Thatcherite economics, you have to accept that you do not have public support. That privatisation, the cuts, the austerity, the all of that consensus that was introduced by Margaret Thatcher, our economy has been wired in a certain way that the super rich are benefiting and barely anyone else is. It has gone too far, it has lost public support, and now even people like Neil Kinnock, I mean, he is not a left-wing firebrand, is coming out and calling for a wealth tax. It is time.
Michael, what does it say about a country that 17,000 very wealthy people want to leave? And take with them a lot of... They create jobs, as in the companies they launch, and they have jobs in that they employ drivers and chefs and gardeners and whatever else.
Sure. I mean, look, this is what happens absolutely every single time.
Well, not at this rate, Michael, not 17,000.
This is what happens absolutely every single time we talk about taxing the rich and making the rich pay a fair share. You know, we constantly we are told that the books need to be balanced on the backs of the poor. We're cutting welfare. We're told the welfare budget is completely unsustainable. We're told that the pension age simply must go up. We're told that no one can ever have a pay rise ever again. But as soon as we start talking about taxing the rich, they'll just have to leave. Isn't that a tragedy? Look. Let's think about how to do this in a workable way. Let's think about how to implement the wealth tax in such a way that it will actually work. But I think it's dishonest to present this as a case, as I think you are, by saying, it's unworkable. Well, hang on. Let's talk about the principle of this. Do you agree with the principle of taxing wealth?
Oh, gosh, that's an yes, but then I'd want to see a little more detail. Yes, of course. Yes, of course. But I don't agree with the fact that you have a tax situation now where wealthy people who launch businesses and employ people are looking elsewhere and heading off to Dubai, Italy and other countries. That's something I do not support.
Sure. I mean, look. That will what
but not at these numbers. I think that's what we. But also, lastly, I don't know. But economists say these have been tried elsewhere in the world and they've never worked. Should we be concerned over that?
Well, we always end up here is in this kind of race to the bottom, where no one's allowed to tax the wealthy because they'll always go everywhere. And really, what you end up doing is making a case for the rich to simply get away with whatever they want.
Well, they're not.
You can go wherever you want. You can do whatever you want. You can exploit whoever you want. Because you can always just leave and go somewhere else.
They're paying huge. They're not getting away with anything. They're paying huge amounts in tax, Michael. Lastly, you know that.
Well, they're paying much less tax than the average person. The tax avoidance schemes mean that the super wealthy are often paying much less tax than the average person. And what I'm saying is that we need to clamp down on tax avoidance and we need to tax wealth. And it's fine to point out that there may be issues with how you do that, but I think it's dishonest to present this to whenever a wealth tax is raised, suddenly talk about workability.
Yes, the point I wanted to make is
yes,
that wealth tax is a fine idea. And you're saying here that there's places that it's been tried that it hasn't worked.
Well, that's what I'm told by economists, yes.
Some of them, that's true. I think some of them also say that it does work. If you look to some of the better areas to live in this world of ours, places that have highest happiness, they have wealth taxes. But then you can also look to other places like idyllic places like Denmark.
Right. Okay.
Denmark has a very good tax, not on wealth, but on income. So here's my question: if you don't want a wealth tax, you don't want to tax these people that literally. You had an economic expert on earlier, and he said, why are we taxing these people who are just working hard?
No, additionally, of course they have to be taxed. But George,
if you don't mind, let me finish.
Well, no, because you started talking about other countries, so you sort of left the goal open there a little bit. These people are already paying 45%, George. What do you want them to pay?
Please let me finish.
Well, okay.
What I'm saying is that we want to spend more, right? We had 14 years of austerity under the Tories, and frankly, we're continuing with it with the Labour.
I don't know that I do want to spend.
So, please.
Well, you can't say we all want to spend more. I don't want to spend more. I want to spend what we spend wisely.
I think we're in agreement that the UK is not in great shape, right? Our
yes,
public
I agree.
services are collapsing.
Right. We give the NHS £3 billion a week. How much more do you want to give them?
So it's important that that's in keeping as a percentage of our GDP. It's important that we spend the same percentage as we did when it was at its height, you see? And what it has been cut in terms of percentage of our GDP compared to the start of the Tory government. So what is important is that we should be spending the same percentage. You say, we're spending $3 billion. People hear that. It's a big number. Sure. But it's less in terms of our percentage that we come in. The UK is the 10th richest country.
Oh, don't worry. Labour will finish that off. It won't be long, don't worry.
Sure.
It
definitely wasn't the Tories,
We'll be in the relegation zone before that. Don't worry.
It wasn't the Tories at all.
Of course they were utterly inept. They were utterly inept.
Right, good. Glad to hear you say it. I wonder who you'll be voting for in the next election.
I've got nowhere to vote. I might have to form my own party. I'll call it none of the above. I might actually get quite far.